But do you think congressmen, a House of Representatives member would have a lot of power if they only represented, say, 25, 35, or even just 100,000 people? Do you think special interests would be able to control the House of Representatives the way they could now if there were, say, 5 or 10,000 congressmen? Do you think so many laws would get passed if we had that many congressmen? If you walk through the halls of Congress, I know this because I used to be a letter opener in third class as a kid when I was starting out in life. We walked through the halls of Congress. Those offices were designed to have a congressman and maybe 2 secretaries each for each person. Now they're packed full of staffs, 20 or 30 people. They're in everything. They have committees. Just imagine if Congress had about as much authority, each individual congressman had about as much authority as a county commissioner. Break the power of the individuals. I'd also say, look at other things. We have judicial activism of the worst kind. I won't go into it. Those of you who heard my speech on judges know this already, but reinstate the loser pays rules. Part of the reason we have judicial activism is because you can file lawsuit after lawsuit after lawsuit after lawsuit at very low cost. To sue my friend in the green shirt, and I'm a lawyer, so I'm picking out my own pocket, would cost me about $600–700 in terms of filing fees and service and process fees. Deputy Ashley will gladly serve that lawsuit for approximately $35. That's the service that the Okaloosa County Sheriff provides pursuant to the Constitution of the state of Florida. And by the way, the Sheriff's departments in all 4 counties have dealt with do a great job. The point here is I can sue this guy for almost anything. The penalty to me will be my time at about $600. The tobacco litigation that was so infamous, there were probably, I've seen several counts, but roughly 70 or 80 lawsuits before they had one successful one in Florida. And that only came after Fred Levin and the governor of Florida sat down and had the law rewritten in favor of the lawsuit. If you want to end judicial activism, change loser pays. Turn the courts back into what they should be, a place for the rule of law. Also, with the Supreme Court and the appointment of justices, it should be a case of precedence is not permanent. Precedence is important in the judicial system. It's what allows us to kind of have some consistency in the law. But it's not ironclad. There are acts and laws that have been in place for as long as 50 or 60 years that are still unconstitutional. There are firearms acts that were passed in the 60s that are probably unconstitutional. There are acts involving federal highway funds that were passed in the 80s that are unconstitutional. Just because they've been around for a long time does not mean they shouldn't be overturned at some point. I firmly believe they should only be overturned when they come before the court, but the liberal insistence that precedents cannot be changed must go. Ask your elected officials to appoint judges who believe that they should look to the Constitution and not precedents first. In Congress, and this applies to state and federal governments, ask elected officials to destroy the power of committees and the rules. Now, one of the reasons, I'll just use this as an example. A lot of people are upset that we subsidize farmers, sugarcane farmers, corn farmers. It's an outdated law, it costs a lot of money, it drives food prices up, government shouldn't be giving handouts to anyone. And this has been a subject that's been a hot topic in conservative circles for years. I'm not going to harp on it, it's just an example. The big reason it doesn't get overturned is because in order to get any legislation passed, it has to go through the Agriculture Committee, which invariably is staffed by people who have agriculture interests, mostly from the Midwest, mostly who happen to be farmers, and who therefore happen to be captured by the interests. And so it's very difficult for someone like, say, Jeff Miller, who isn't on that committee, he's Farm Services Committee, to have any pull to get that legislation through, to get it taken seriously and get it to a point where it can get a vote. Even someone like Mr. Evers, who is a farmer, would have a hard time doing it because on that committee, he would only be one of about 20 individuals. So even Mr. Evers, who is a farmer and is a conservative and probably would like to, if he was at the federal level, probably would like to do something about agricultural subsidies, would probably have a very difficult time doing it. It would probably wreck his career for a few years. If you want to get Congress back, try and attack those concentrations of power in the rule system and the committee system. Change that. Get back to a system where any individual can propose a law, put together a coalition, put it to a vote, and you will start to see some changes. Finally, I have two more points. Term limits are important, and people have talked about it, but I want to ask one thing to consider. With term limits, you must put something else in place. You must address the power of parties and other mechanisms. There was a professor named Ed Banfield, who I highly recommend reading, who years ago was upset at the demise of machine politics. Not because he liked corruption of machine politics, but because he knew that the end of machine politics, which delivered pork, would create a system where people would be talking heads, trying to create problems and promote ideology, a system he thought was infinitely worse. And in the era of Harry Reid, Nancy Pelosi, and Obama, he seems to have been proven right. The point I'd like to make is where term limits have been tried, ideology and the problems haven't disappeared. The key you have to remember is power will and money will follow somewhere. Be careful with term limits. Understand that if term limits go away, you still have parties, you still have powerful individuals who will promote their own individuals. You will still have machines, you will still have groups that can promote special interests. So term limits are good, but they have to be coupled with other things. They are not in themselves their own panacea. What I'm stressing here is breaking the concentrations of power. There is room for more than two political parties. There is room for more than just term limits. There are things we can do, such as changing campaign finance laws, which should really be called incumbent protection laws. Do things so that individuals have the power to run. Do things so that groups such as these Tea Parties can be heard better. And do things so that individuals have more abilities to influence their elected officials at a grassroots level. If you're going to put in term limits, be careful. Political machines, party machines are all out there. They all must be dealt with. And they will all nullify any changes you get through term limits. Finally, and those of you who heard me speak, hear this at the end of each speech, is to read. And yes, now that the campaign is over, I will get that reading list out to everyone. But please read and get educated. Read your history. Read about the books. Read your forefathers. Read economics. Read all the authors I have cited. Read what your founders wrote. I have on my iPod for $1, or a couple dollars. What was the name of that? Bear with me a moment. My daughter has all these games on here. She's 4 years old. I have U.S. history documents. I have on here everything. Magna Carta, Christopher Columbus's letters, First Virginia Charter. I have the Federalist Papers, the Anti-Federalist Papers, the Mayflower Compact, the Albany Plan, Thomas Paine's Common Sense, Glenn Beck's Common Sense. I have Articles of Confederation, Paris Peace Treaty, Fugitive Slave Law. I'm just reading these things today. 350 documents, all of which are important. Constitutions. I have books from de Tocqueville, and they can be bought for easily. Read books about tyranny. Read books about politics. Read Rousseau. Read John Locke. Read the books that influenced our founders. Read classical Greek history. Read. Read your newspapers. Read what the opposition has to say. The number of times I see debates of people who watch a lot of Glenn Beck, which I highly recommend, by the way. A lot of Glenn Beck, a lot of O'Reilly, a lot of Hannity, and I've read a lot of conservative authors, and then turn around and get into an argument they've never so much as read the Communist Manifesto is amazing, and they get stomped. Please read. I suffered through, if you know the reason that I had to suffer through Barack Obama's 2 books, and I want to put that misery on the rest of you. The reason I encourage this is because we, as a Tea Party, the Panhandle Patriots, the reason you folks are being vilified and called racist, called radical, is because you're effective. It's because you folks are causing the Republican Party to have to rethink itself, and you are scaring the Democratic Party. And they're going to the bottom line of vilifying you to hopefully drive people back out into the wilderness. my favorites were on Blue on is I got to speak in front of the ACLU. Now, as tempting as it was to walk in there, give the middle finger and tell them exactly what I thought, here's the thing. I was able to get in, give a speech, explain my position, answer every question, answer it sincerely, and not say you're screwing up our country at the end of each phrase. But the point is by going in and going toe to toe, I know at least a third to half of those individuals have come up to me later and said, we voted for you because we liked what you had to say. You were honest. And here's the thing, the other judicial candidate in that room was a pro-death penalty Democrat. I can say that now. Pro-death penalty Democrat who was not well liked. So that's my point. The reason you need to get well-read and educated is because that's what enables us to go forward, to go toe-to-toe and be effective. I will do everything I can to help you out, to encourage you. I appreciate you guys for taking not 1 but 2 days of your weekend to come out here to learn, to support, show your spirit and help this government. I'd like to thank all the gentlemen and ladies in the back who are out there with the candidates, because we need good people to run, we need more people to run. I just ran, I will do it again. I need all of you in the audience at some point to consider doing the same. Those of you who want to be active in government, prepare to step up into the line. We're being effective now. It's going to be rough, but I want you to stay the course. Thank you all for your time here today. I'll be happy to answer any questions when we're done. Well, we will answer your time for questions, or we?
We'll have to do it separately.
Do it separately. Thank you for your time, and it's been an incredible honor. Thank you very much.